don't know if you all are going onto my community page and looking at my posts, which are usually a reflection of my Twitter posts, or you're just waiting for videos. So this is why I kind of try to do a crossover to ensure that you're all updated. If you are only watching the videos, I do suggest you looking at my community page posts, but if you're not into reading and all that stuff, I completely get it. So just let me know and I'll keep doing these crossover videos. I think what I want to just quickly briefly discuss today is history and how history seems to be repeating itself under the British Empire. And it's really, it's ironic and it's very, I guess, confronting to kind of see this repetition played out, especially in the UK, if the British Empire were the ones who invented these kind of things, these strategies to be able to control their colonies and to control costs of sustaining these colonies. And it usually, I know this won't make sense right now, so I know you'll be like, oh, fuck off, Laura, with your just talking shit. I get it. Just let me rant and I'll get there, I hope. Now I've lost my train of thought because there's so many things that I'm thinking about that I'm trying to pull together. So just don't mind me. I've lost the plot. Oh, that will be music to all of the narcissist ears that try to harass and harangue me and have hate campaigns against me for no reason at all other than telling the truth. Sometimes getting it wrong too, which I'm more than ready to admit. Anyway, enough of that rant within a rant. These creations or these strategies that are played out, what I'm talking about at the moment is the use of famine, the use of terrorism, and the use of vaccines. And the use of terrorism was usually, it's been perpetrated, in many countries, but the kind of original terrorist group that the British Empire founded was in Egypt, roughly around, I think it was 1928, which is this article here, a wonderful Indian researcher that has also done the article on the famines of India. So you've got Egypt when basically when UK or British Empire took over Egypt and created the Suez Canal. You've got that, which I'm about to kind of just get into a little bit more for you in case you just want to skip the light reading or heavy reading. And then you've got the famines for over 190 years that culminated, and this is only by the statistics that were published, by the way, which never are the true numbers. 60 million democide, 60 million Indians dead over a democide that lasted throughout the reign of 8 monarchs. It's not funny. It's just like I laugh because it's just so like it's so intense and really just hard to kind of grasp at times. Here we are, traumatized and re-traumatized by the one story of the Nazi camps and the death of 6 million Jews. But you have the original concentration camps were done by the British Empire in India during this 60 million death and more democide over from 1765 up until 1947. So up until the ruling of, or the throne of Queen Elizabeth's father, George. So that's George the Third to that George. I think that's George the Fifth. So there you go. You've got the famines in India, a British colony. You've got the and also free trade or economic manipulation, and you've got the terrorism in Egypt, which then moved over to Israel and the like. And then you also have the vaccines and concentration camps, through the use of concentration camps that originated from the Indian colonization and the democide through famines. They were then re-implemented in the Second Boers War in Australia, and it was to control South Africa, the Second Boers War, also under the British Empire, and the Wellcome Company, American Wellcome Company, had experimental vaccines, and that was the origination of democide through vaccines. So that was in 1900, or circa 1900, should I say. So that led to around 60,000 deaths. But let's get into kind of just a brief overview of all of this. I think the reason why I want to bring this up isn't obviously for an attack. It's to simply understand that this is not new, all of these strategies. The mass migration and this terrorism psyops that are playing out everywhere, especially in developed countries. This is not new, and it's by the very nation that leads us and governs us all. So yeah, it's not new, and it's been a very well proven and successful method of controlling colonies of the crown. So that's just something important to note, and moving forward, knowing that things aren't just because of climate change or because there's disease or flu flying around, and there's been a leak from a lab. What else? Terrorism isn't just a civil matter. It was a way to cull nationalist leaders and kill them off, so no one could ever rise to power, and to protect the country that was being overruled by the British Empire. So let's get into it. Far out, 8 minutes and 45 seconds already. Sorry, guys. I just hope you bear with me. Now, I won't go into this too much, but this is the article about the terrorism. Now, there's a link here that you can click on, and it will go to I will click on it so you can see it properly. No, actually, this is a link to the Twitter thing. So this is the article is posted through Twitter. I can post a link to the actual article if you prefer. It's online, so I can get that. It's publicly available. Let me just read some things out to you. I think that's the best way of doing it. Since its inception in Egypt in 1928, this intentional outfit... Oh, hold on, let me go back. All right, let's start here with the points. In 1928, Egypt was under British control, although not a British colony, and the Brotherhood built links with British intelligence and worked to help the British. It formed an alliance with the Nazis during World War II. It then returned to serve British interests once more, trying to oust the nationalist regime of President Gamal Nasser. It was a key player in the rise of the Islamic jihadist groups that helped the West to push Soviet troops out of Afghanistan. It allowed its followers to attack the West's assets, culminating in the 9/11 attack on American soil. It is now back again serving the West by providing manpower for regime change in the Arab world and North Africa, which you could, this is in 2013, this article, so you could apply it now that these terrorism groups that have been backed by developed nations are back providing manpower for regime change towards globalism and one world governance. So you can see how this is already being played out. And I say this in particular towards the British because I know they're going through a really hard time, and I know a lot of people are anti-Islam, anti-Muslim, because they're anti-mass migration, and I completely get it. But I think it's very, very, very intentional, and it's a very intentional strategic move done by the higher-ups who actually govern your country. And I think that's who you should be looking at rather than a group, because that's very, very, very intentional. And I think I'll just continue to read on. Long before the Muslim Brotherhood was formed, the British had taken control of Egypt, following the construction of the Suez Canal by the French in 1869, which improved Britain's connection with the Indian subcontinent under British colonial rule and cut down the travel time from London to Bombay, now Mumbai. So this is also while they were, committing democides in India. Britain had been looking for an opportunity to gain control of the canal to serve its geostrategic interests. And I think I have said this in the main post, but this does tie into the creation of Israel and why Israel was situated in Palestine, right near the Suez Canal, and that trade route. It was to secure it as well in a different way. And also there's oil and the like, and more things that are quite resourceful there. But it was a geopolitical, geostrategic play by the British to create Israel there, by the Rothschilds, who are also involved in this as well. So let me continue. At the time, the canal was under control of the French and Khedive Ismail Pasha, the ruler of Egypt, with Britain holding a minority share. The opportunity sought by London popped up in 1875, when it became obvious that Khedive had gotten himself into serious economic difficulties. He approached Britain in an effort to raise money, and with Baron Rothschild, dishing out the money to his good friend, British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli. Baron Rothschild at that time was also involved, 1875. Yeah, so he was involved in the Second Boers War with South Africa, and he was a part of the Pilgrim Society of Cecil Rhodes, and they were pretty much advisory to the Queen at the time, Queen Victoria. So, dishing out the money to his good friend Britain, Britain got hold of the Khedive's shares in the Suez Canal Company. Overnight, the British went from minority shareholder to controlling shareholder. But the money that the Khedive got for the deal was not enough to last long. By 1882, Egypt's economic situation reached another crisis. Of course it did. Isn't that just super convenient? And this time, the British and French governments initiated a stewardship of the finances of Egypt. This was little more than joint colonization, as British and French experts were sent to various ministries to take control of day-to-day business. The Khedive's unwillingness to agree to such terms was rewarded by his forced abdication and replacement by his son Tawfiq. Imagine that sort of betrayal, but also imagine that sort of control where you've got the Khedive. As soon as there'd probably be some sort of economic weakness publicized to the Egyptians, they would of course blame the leader of the country, in which they would just need to, anyone wanting to overpower the Khedive would just need to add in a bit more lack of confidence, a bit more fear, whatever it may be, and the public would force the Khedive or the leader to abdicate, thinking that the problem was within the Khedive, when it seems to be a matter of environmental manipulations, let's say. The small number of revolts against the Europeans were repressed by Britain with an iron hand. In 1928, because they did learn from India, so they knew very well what to do and how best to do it. In 1928, when an Egyptian school teacher named Hassan al-Banna, so you really think a school teacher, okay. Well, let's just say he's a plant, formed the Ikhwan al-Muslimin. Egypt was a protectorate of Britain, which controlled its finances, government personnel, and armed forces. In matters concerning the international status of Egypt, decisions were taken in London. So really, I don't know how France was even involved, really, other than being Britain's bitch. I don't see how they have any involvement with this. Maybe armed forces. No, I have no idea. Decisions were taken in London, but where the internal administration of the country was concerned, the consul general's opinions were usually decisive. So the consul general was pretty much ruling Egypt. Although throughout the occupation, the facade of an Egyptian government under the Khedives was retained, British advisors attached to the various ministries were more influential than their ministers, while the consul general steadily increased his control over the whole administrative machine. So the Khedive was nothing more than a constitutional ceremonial royal, let's say. In this milieu, the Brotherhood was set up as a religious secret society known publicly for its emphasis on Islamic education and for its charitable activities, which is interesting because that's in a way how Hamas was created as well. It was created as a non-for-profit. I think I won't get into it because my memory's a bit shoddy with all this information, but very, very similar how it was created and formed. Obviously, these are, it's under intelligence as to how they were formed. But soon after it was formed, a British intelligence agent, Freya Stark, appeared on the scene in Egypt. Stark, a self-proclaimed Jew-hater, the parrots just flew over, was a wandering agent of British intelligence during the Second World War. In her book, East is West, 1945, she compared fascist Rome, Zionist Jerusalem, and the British Empire. She wrote, "The skein of the Middle East in all these centuries has gathered threads of very many colours, and no return to simple black and white will ever be possible again, whether it be the dream of fascist Rome or Zionist Jerusalem or that British form of empire which has become obsolete. Fascist Rome. That's interesting. Stark served with the British in the Middle East to help counteract Nazi influence in, I think it's Aden, Cairo, and Baghdad. Later, she was also sent on missions to the United States, Canada, and India. Once in Cairo, she soon set up the Ikhwan al-Huraya Brotherhood of Freedom, ostensibly to keep track of the growing German activities in North Africa. There you go. Rinsed and repeated. Soon she made contact with the Brotherhood and became a source for London on the many different political movements that were springing up in Egypt with the help of Banner and his people. What a good guy. It talks about its involvement with Hitler. Mr. Al-Banna was a devout admirer of a young Austrian writer by the name of Adolf Hitler. Come on, man. Yeah, he just decided to pick up a book by Hitler and was inspired and moved and decided to join his cause. Come on. Yeah, Nazi intelligence made contact with Al-Banna. Hitler came to power. Yeah, Nazi intelligence. Yeah, sure. Come on. There's no coincidences in life. None at all. The Grand Mufti with Hitler, etc., etc. It is a great, great, great article. So I really encourage you to have a read. Yeah. The Muslim Brotherhood was created in 1928 in Egypt, which had been a British protectorate since 1882. The British covertly supported the founding of the Muslim Brotherhood. No shit. Appreciating that its theme was that the Quran is our institution, i.e. no nation states, no sovereign countries, no nationalism. This, of course, was exactly what the British used in their efforts to overthrow nationalists. For example, Egypt's Nasser. And then moving forward, Palestine, and moving forward everywhere else like North Africa. It's helped very, very much to keep control of colonies and retain control, especially in the early years of commencing the colonization of these countries. Yeah, it's been a good way to control the masses and make sure there was no rebellions. So that's the first article to look at that I really encourage you looking into. I think another thing is, before I go on, is I would really encourage you to look into the Israeli Begin. Literally, it's spelled like Begin, Begin. He was, I think, the third prime minister or second prime minister of Israel. He was the self-proclaimed father of terrorism, but obviously he's just been the British intelligence or whoever has actually helped him with terrorism in Israel, Palestine, because that was their strategy, that was their method, already done in Egypt, and then moved on over. So I think what I encourage you to look into is his whole creation. I think Begin is the mentor of Netanyahu, and Netanyahu's father worked with Begin. So I think the creation of Mossad has a lot to do with that. I think he was the beginnings of Mossad. But yes, himself proclaiming being the father of terrorism also now connects Begin to, he was already in the Nazi alliance as well with Hitler, so it ties into this whole situation, even with the Brotherhood as well. But it also ties into, obviously, British intelligence. So yeah,